Who ready? Who ready? Who? Husky
Welcome to the Huskies Pulse podcast. I'm your host, Clarence Nelson, and we are in the den today with a couple of special guests from the Edmonton Huskies organization. We have alumni members Dan Butcher and Ron McIntyre. Welcome this morning, guys.
Thanks.
Hope you've had your coffee this morning. It's an early Saturday morning, so and again, we want to talk to you folks about something a little bit different than we have in the past. We've been talking with coaches and players and support staff, but we want to talk about the important part of the Huskies tradition, and that's you folks, members of the Huskies alumni. So let's begin with a little question. How did, Ron, can you tell me how you got involved in football?
Back in the early 70s, we had a real extensive Bantam football program. Probably more kids played minor football back then than there are currently playing at that level.
Yep.
And so, grade 7, older brothers played, my friends' older brothers, and my dad played football. I wanted to be a football player.
Is that here in Edmonton?
Yeah.
Always Edmonton. Wow.
Yeah.
Terrific. And Dan.
Yes.
Big man Dan. How did you get involved in football? How old were you when you first touched football?
After I graduated from high school up in St. Paul Regional High is when I first came to Edmonton, and a cousin of mine brought me to watch a practice. We'd called ahead to the Edmonton Eskimos, actually. Said, how do you get into this football? They said, well, there's 2 junior teams, Wildcats and Huskies, so you can pick one of them. And so we chose to go watch a practice at below the high level bridge, my cousin and I. Nice fall day, or actually summer day. It was before training camp. It was just starting, actually. And so we get in there, and I'm standing on the sideline. That was John Belmont's first year. And John, he walked over to me, and in John Belmont's voice, he said, you ever play football, son? And my dad, he was a military guy. Okay, so he, my responses always had to be, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, or yes, sir, no, sir. Okay, so I said, no, sir. He said, would you like to try? I said, I could try. He said, you'd be down there 4 p.m. tomorrow, get a medical and some equipment on you, and we'll get you going. And that was it.
What year was that?
That was 1977, yeah.
Wow.
Okay, so here's a true story.
Yeah.
All our stories aren't true, but this is a true one. I was working at Runner's World by the stadium, and Runner's World was the first retail running shoe business in Edmonton before the Locker Room or any of those guys. In walks this big galoot. I didn't know him. I was in grade 12. Summer after grade 12, and this monster rolls in with a jean jacket on. And he says, I need some football cleats, and I don't know anything about them. And he's talking about this loud. I have never played football, and I need to try on some football cleats.
Yeah, I
looked at this guy, and he was like 16, 17 years old, and he was just gigantic, like his chest and everything. Very fit.
Mm-hmm.
Sure enough, he went out for the Huskies and ended up on our wall of fame. But I'll never forget that because I didn't, of course, know him. He said he was from the country. He was just a country boy. And anyway, sorry.
No, that's good stories. This is what we want to hear. Ron, what position did you play when you were
Linebacker.
Typically linebacker?
Always linebacker.
Yeah? You enjoyed that?
Yeah.
What's the best position? What's the best part of playing linebacker?
You get to play run and pass. So you're the link between the secondary and the line. So you're that link. So leadership, it's assumed that you're going to be a leader on that defense.
Mm-hmm.
But you also get a chance you're kind of a quarterback, so you get to see the offense and figure things out before they happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Dan, when you came to the Huskies, where did they put you?
They started me out at D-tackle. And then they wasn't long before they moved us into a 30 front, and I was at nose tackle and played that for quite a few years there.
You and I talked before this session today, and you said you really enjoyed the nose tackle position. What do you enjoy about that?
Well, it's tough slugging, but I tell you, I mean, it was very rewarding when you're tying up 2 men, freeing up your linebackers to scrape whatever, to be active in the play. When you're tying up two offensive linemen.
These are awesome stories because, when Ron was coaching me at McNally, I never got a chance to speak about this. We were too busy trying to do the things we did at McNally. And, I've been involved in football quite a long time. So these are tremendous stories for me to hear and learn. And so speaking of that, I'm in the room with mentors that have influenced me. Can you guys reflect on your times as a player, the important people that would mentor you?
I had several. The big thing, what I enjoyed most about playing on the defensive side of the ball, because when I went to the Eskimos, I played offense. Well, my very first training camp was nose tackle. Okay. And I was enjoying it when we had four nose tackles at camp, but after the first practice, we're down to 2. So I had my work cut out for me that year because that was the year Bob Howes retired. They had 10 centers in trying to win that spot. So, but what I liked about the difference between the two, offense and defense, I enjoyed the defense far more because you didn't have to think as much. You could be more reactionary. So the term I used to use when I'd coach my defensive line and stuff, I'd say, listen, unleash the beast. Just, you don't have to be nice for 4 or 5 seconds there, just unleash it, but you got it. Once you touch down on the turf, you got to be able to learn how to turn that switch on and off, and conserve your energy in between, the play. So I much preferred defense. So, but
absolutely, that was, and I work in an industry where, we enforce certain legislation in law enforcement and stuff.
Right.
And I tell people all the time, football gives you an opportunity to do things that typically most people are not allowed to do.
Yeah.
And
in a respectful manner. And if your opponent is playing respectfully, you can be hammering away on each other all day long. But, and I often told my players, I says, the most important thing at the end of a game, win or lose, is when you shake the hand of that opponent and look him in the eye, that you've earned his respect, and vice versa. He's had, and you've earned his respect. That's the most important part of this game, because I try to tell these young people, when they're in their 20s and 30s and playing ball, that, they think that it's all about the win and lose, right? And it's not. It's about the development of good human beings, pillars of the community, and as Ron and I are experiencing now with the Huskies Alumni Society Board, we still have the brotherhood going and the fellowship. We're still having breakfast together, podcasts.
100%.
Yeah.
Would you agree, Dan and Ron, that the word win actually represents an acronym? It's what's important now, as opposed to the score or the game or the standings or the titles. Would you agree to that, Ron?
Yep. I'm not supposed to say just yes, no answers, but absolutely. You're not going to win unless you're focused on the here and now and being in the present. That's one of the things that sports teaches. So, yeah, 100%.
Can you pick any parts of the Huskies that stand out for you compared to the other teams? What was so special about the Huskies?
Well, in my case, because I come from a family of 6 children, 5 sisters, no brothers. So when I came up from Duvernay, way back in '77 to watch that practice, I'd never experienced a brotherhood before. So what happened that very first within a month with that me being at camp, my dad got cancer. He got colon cancer, and he rushed him up to Edmonton for the surgery and all that. And I had to go back to the farm to put the hay up. So I asked John Belmont. I said, John, this is the scenario. My dad's got cancer, and so he said, by all means, Dan, you go back, you put the hay up, and you're always welcome to come back. I went home. I put the hay up. In a couple of weeks, I had her done, and in 2 weeks, I'd missed all my brothers that I'd never experienced before in my life. Now you got to remember, I was a big boy, 285 at the time, 6'2", but I had some jelly on me. My old Uncle Rainey used to say, "You got to be jelly, 'cause jam don't shake, boy." So anyway, I went ahead and
the part of the story that you're not
that
telling,
I want to get in.
well,
there.
just a sec.
Yeah, you help me
The
out.
part of the part of the story that Butch isn't talking about, and sorry, Clarence, to take the
help me out.
No,
helm
absolutely,
here.
fellas.
Is Butch always talks about the brotherhood and how important that was to him. But to me, one of the things that I talked about in the book was how badly he was willing to sacrifice to be an Edmonton Husky.
Mm.
Tell him where he lived for the first 5 days.
Well, I'm a country boy, so hey, there's always a means. You're a survivor, right? So I came to Edmonton, but I didn't have a place to stay or anything. And I drove a 1971 two-door Plymouth Fury 2, and it was a big boat. The back seat on that thing, when I opened up and crawled into the back seat to sleep, was like a queen-size bed in there. It was huge, right? And then I used to wash up in the garages. Back in those days, in '77, they didn't lock garage doors at gas stations, stuff like that. They were always an external door outside the building, and you went in, wash up, do your stuff, and and then so I was like that. And then some of the other players found out about it, I guess, and they told John Belmont. And John Belmont at the time had a real nice old place up on Saskatchewan Drive. He was a bachelor at the time, so he says, that don't fly on my team. He says, so he moved me, and I lived with JB for a while till I got on my feet a bit and got a place to stay and stuff. And,
Wow. You wouldn't hear about that today.
no, but back then that wasn't something out of the ordinary for me. I didn't think I was, like almost like a homeless person. I had family. I had everyone's helping me, everything else, but of course I was proud, so I didn't want to tell them that I was sleeping in my car. But
For the record, your 1971 Belmont, was it?
that was 1977 with Belmont. Yeah.
Yeah.
I played under him for 2 years.
Yeah, but your car,
Yeah, that was a 1971 Plymouth Fury.
Plymouth, yes.
Yeah,
So that car that you slept in for the first little while as a Husky,
Oh, yeah.
that year I was born.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Thanks, Clarence. I really needed that.
Oh my goodness. During those times, was it different now than it was back then with rivalries? Like, what were your rivalries?
yeah.
Who were the targets back then?
Without a doubt, the Cats for sure. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Quick story. I first came to Edmonton in 1977, and once I did get a place, it was over because I didn't know the city. I was a country boy, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't know the city in better areas, worse areas. Anyway, I get a place. I'm staying in an apartment 2 blocks north of Cromdale Hotel.
Oh my goodness.
So I was working in the Ironworkers Union at the time. And about 4 in the morning, back then, no air conditioning, so sleeping with a 3rd floor apartment, window open. I can hear a ruckus going on outside. I get up, I look out, and right across the street, there was a poor fella. He was laying there, and he had a knife sticking out of his back, and the sirens were coming and everything, and so everybody scattered, And I'm watching this from my bedroom window, and I'm thinking, wow. This isn't something I'd see down in Duvernay, So that was it. After that month, paid rent. I moved. I went down to the south side, and that was the last. But north side, we had pretty good rivalries. North side boys compared to south side boys, it was a little different, social economic as well. Is north side, they were more street kids, and south side were more affluent. Teachers, professors, kids, and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
there were more concrete workers and stuff like that on the north side from the boys.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, Ron, when you were with the Huskies, what team or maybe even what players made you see red most when you were on the field? How Bush?
I never played for the Huskies. I coached them.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
What kind of players would irritate me?
Yeah,
Probably the guys that reminded me of myself as a kid.
Mm.
Like when they made the same stupid mistakes I did.
Mm.
And you don't want them you want your players to be better than you are.
Mm.
So like with the Huskies, the players I coached, they were some exemplar characters, guys like Grant Clearwater, Bobby McKay, Richard Tozak, Randy Shantz. So these guys did what they were told. They played hard, and you were always proud of them.
Yeah.
Right? So we didn't have many problems back then with the character piece.
Mm.
Yeah.
And, speaking about football, you can't not speak about how it influences your life. and like many other sports, but I think football being special that way. How did this sport prepare you folks for life after football?
I'll take that one there because it made me the man I am today. However, it's generational. Didn't just make me the man I am today, because as Mac said, when I came to up off the farm at 17 years old, and he talked to me at North Star, he's true. I wouldn't have said, what if I had a mouthful of it, you know what I mean? So anyway, Mac, he's 100% right. Okay, on that. So
absolutely, and if that's the case, and we're going to talk in a moment about the state of the Canadian football situation here, but what advice would you give young people these days looking to pursue this sport like you did when you first started?
Play the game.
Mm-hmm.
There's no game like it. We live in an age where everything is relative. This, it's all relative. There's no really right way of organizing your community or blah 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 without getting too political. But football. Tom Wilkinson, I coached with Tom, and he said one time, he goes, it's really the only game where when you're on defense, you're watching the offense and you're cheering them on. And there's nothing you can do about it.
Mm.
So in the same offense cheers on the defense. In most other sports, you're involved on both sides of it, right? So you can't, you have a chance in football to point fingers like in no other sport. You can say, well, that offense is killing us. Like it's their fault. So to bring the team aspect to a sport, football really is unique.
Mm.
So because it's unique and the challenges are so great, you have to, it's good for growth, for a young person.
There's a quote I'd like to throw in there too, from a man we all loved, anyone that ever played for the Edmonton Eskimos. Any young junior player that ever played for the the Edmonton Wildcats or the Edmonton Huskies. That's Dwayne Mandruziak, equipment manager for the Eskimos for 49 and a half years. Dwayne used to say to me, he's a Butch, football, it's a great sport, but a crappy business, he said, and it's true. And nobody's seen more guys come and go than Dwayne Mandruziak over the years, right?
Yeah.
He's seen the great ones come and the great ones go.
At 49 years in the
49
service.
and a half years service.
So bringing us today now, how do you see the current state of this sport in Canada, not just the CFL, but at all levels? How has it changed from the time when you folks played?
Well, I know for me, Mac and I, we coached together for a few years there in the early 90s there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Gary Durtrick and stuff. But I find that the game has changed so much because of the physicality and stuff. Head injuries have become such a huge part of the game, and they have to address that, right? We can't be having players, a lot of players we know, from my era, they've had mental issues and stuff, from the contact and stuff in their younger years, so it's good, but I'd have to relearn how to coach defensive techniques now, because it's changed. The old days used to have them, run through the crook of the neck, shoulder to head, and they can't run through that. So then you're wrap and down, But so it's a different game. I'm still trying to decide whether I like the newer game. I realize it's keeping the athletes healthier and stuff like that, but I just
fair statement.
Yeah. So
Ron, what do you think?
I think the game's in better shape now than it ever has been, and I think you can thank the NFL and even Football Canada for embracing the flag football part of it, and now we've got females playing the game, and we've got them playing tackle. I watched one girl last year playing for St. Albert, and I went out and watched, I think it was 9-a-side female, and fundamentally and technically they were as sound as the high school boys. They may not have been as fast or as strong, but they were really good. And the flag football is like the national championships and all this. It's exploding. So now the NFL's smart, because now they've opened up this fan base, and through fantasy football, my half sister knows more about. I don't know anybody in the NFL. She knows every tight end. She can say, well, this guy, you want this guy, you don't want this guy. Mahomes, he's going to have a tough week because they're playing this defense and they're good against the pass. And I'm like, what is going on here? So you've got
Very analytical.
so all these female that are now involved in the game, they're going to have boys and they're not going to be afraid of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And they're
true.
going to say, get on your cleats and go play and have some fun. And if they don't want to play contact, they can play flag.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Clarence, if you recall, because your kids came up through the Charger program, as my boys did.
Yes.
And you remember, because the Bantam team at the time, they had her name was Julie. Do you remember Julie?
I do,
She
yeah.
was a fantastic little athlete, eh?
Mm-hmm.
And she could hold her own out there, eh? So, and that was good to see.
Yeah, and a lot of things have changed, mostly for the better. I agree with Ron. And for people our age, it's hard to keep up with some technology. There's a lot of stuff that's come out these days. The helmets are not the way they used to be.
Oh, no.
I remember going to high school from Bantam, and I had to I would take my helmet home, and I took it all apart and put the screws back the way they should have been. We would play with buckets or equivalent. And then when it got cold, the buckets turned the same way. And things are not the way. When my son brings home a piece of equipment from the Huskies or otherwise, it's almost foreign to me. It looks similar, but the technology these days is significantly different than it was back then.
Here's a chuckle for you. I believe it was, I played 5 years, 77 through 81 with the Huskies. So our middle linebacker, Eddie Marcineau at the time, he was wearing a suspension helmet. They gave me an old Rydell water pack. Okay.
Oh, I remember those. Those are heavy.
Oh, heavy. And then, you know what? The only relief I got, really, the one day it was really, really hot. And I nailed somebody with that. And I blew the bladder in a day when I hit the guy so hard. And it was a hot day, but it was quite comforting because all that water inside that bladder all came down over my head and stuff. It cooled me off. So, and Eddie was wearing the suspension helmet. So Eddie, he rocked the guy. And anyway, he come out of the game. He had to come out of the game because he took a 5-inch hole right out of the top of his helmet. Eh?
Oh my God!
Yeah, it was an old suspension. Eh? So anyway, he's down. So he had to borrow a helmet till he got another helmet and stuff. Eh? But no, it was a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
Great stories. Let's talk and shift gears a little bit about Ron's book, The Gridiron Wisdom. Am I saying that right? Gridiron Wisdom. And tell me, Ron, what inspired you to take that on?
Love of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and if it's done properly, what it can do for the participants.
Mm-hmm. And can you share a couple of themes and messages that you included in your book?
Excuse me for one sec there, Clarence. I'd like to say something on Mac's being very humble.
Yeah.
Okay, Mac, he has been a mentor in the school system for 35 years, okay? And he coached all those years, everything. He's being very humble, and he continues right now with his book and stuff. That's all leadership, and it's to teach others. Read his book, learn about leadership and what it takes to be a successful leader. Okay, because a leader, his role really is to continue the growth of others to become good leaders. And that's the future. That's the future for all of us. And it doesn't matter what you're in, whether it be sports, business, whatever. You need leadership. In your own family unit, you need leadership. My wife is definitely the boss in my family,
That's a really good point, Butch. And before I let Ron speak about some of the themes, leadership is about bringing success in all shapes and sizes. And I think Ron is an example of what I've always believed, and that is success is when ordinary people do extraordinary things. And I think that's an extraordinary achievement. And it's not the end either for people like you folks and Ron. And so, Ron, maybe if you could explain a couple of things for those that are interested in the book.
So as you get older, you start to understand that the community is important. And after COVID, when the community was torn apart through isolation and anger, politically, the state of politics in North America it's very divisive and polarized. And I think maybe COVID played into that a bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as you get older, you start to worry about the continuity of a good community and civilization. Well, the thing that I was always involved in was teaching social studies and football. So you go, Okay, so what could we throw out there for coaches that would, like Butch just mentioned, that would put out the exemplars? Who are the best? Why are they the best? Every coach is wondering, every coach I know wants to win.
And what do they have that we don't have? Why aren't we winning like they're winning? Yeah.
So the what's important now is an important thing, but there also is there's a philosophical base to what these guys did. And the 5 programs that I chose, I left out the 80s Eskimos. I chose the 50s Eskimos. The 80s Eskimos won 5 in a row. The 50s Eskimos won 3 in a row. I was more familiar with them. But what the impact on the community of these teams was profound, all of them. And I found this out as I went along. The impact on the community was outstanding. And the guys that started or that got these programs going, that was one of the fundamentals of their programs. So, for example, I mean, I got to be careful here, Clarence, because I got 35,000 words that I could, in the book. So you just tell me to shut up when you want. But one of the things they did was so for example, Peter Cannellan in University of Calgary, he wouldn't recruit outside of Southern Alberta.
Really?
No. He wanted his guys to stay he wanted guys from his community. He thought the taxpayers pay us money at the University of Calgary to develop young men and get them ready for their careers and their families. So they would take guys from outside Southern Alberta, but they wouldn't recruit. They wouldn't recruit north of Red Deer.
So if they're a walk-on, they would be there. Yeah.
By chance.
By chance.
Yeah. So his teams were overwhelmingly Southern Alberta boys, and they were told, maybe not daily, but I did all my fact checking because sometimes guys will say something, but I checked with the athletes, and they were told constantly, when you graduate from here, you will always be a dino, and you remember that, and you don't embarrass us, you don't embarrass your program, and you go back into Calgary and you be good citizens and be coaches.
Of course.
And so when you look at Calgary minor football, I was talking to one fellow. He's 55 years old. He's coaching a Pee-wee team, and he was an accomplished all-Canadian athlete, but he just loves working with those kids, and it was something that was ingrained in him. So that would probably, to make a long story short, it was about how do we improve our community, and maybe in a way my book can get to some young coach who can say, that makes sense. Maybe I should try that.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm not. Most coaches are pretty reluctant to grow, but we'll see. We'll see what it does.
Thank you for that. The title, Gridiron Wisdom, begs the question: how would you folks define wisdom?
You take that one. You're the big kahuna.
So
here,
the
Mac.
wisdom would be wisdom. I guess to me, I don't know. I haven't really. It's just a term we throw around, but it's gridiron wisdom. What can we take out of the game of football that we can apply to our lives? What kind of wisdom can those great programs give to coaches to help their athletes grow and take responsibility for themselves and become better men? Now, I say men, but as I mentioned earlier, now that women are getting involved in the game, that opens a whole new thing that I'm not familiar with, but I'm sure looking forward to talking to some girls I've already started for the next book to see what it is about the game that drew them to it.
Yeah, and that couldn't be stronger these days. I've seen it myself. I'm a father of 2 women, growing young women, and it is a pleasure to see the crossover. And there wasn't so long ago you would have days where I think the Eskimos might still have it, learn the game day.
Oh, yeah, they used to have that. Monday morning quarterback thing.
Exactly.
Football 101, all that.
And I'm telling you, when I sit down to watch any game, particularly CFL, no question about it, my son Bjorn and my wife Ruth, they talk and banter all back and forth. And, I've coached and I've played and I've been a father and I've been an administrator and stuff like that. But they have that connection that they share all the time. And it's so interesting to see even women of her age know the level of stuff they do. And you mentioned that there's names that other people know in the NFL. My wife is the same. and I can't keep up.
There is something I want to mention. And that is the family unit. When you're involved in the sport of football at the minor level, like I'm talking Adam, Pee Wee, Bantam, it became, we had 4 children, 3 boys and a girl, and it became our entire life. We were and it didn't matter if it was hockey season, football season, what have you. But for the parent, that was our entire entertainment. We didn't go to movies. We didn't go out to dinners and all that. We went to our kids' sporting events. And, and then that's how you, of course, all the people in the community, they're all there because, that's how you continue to build and strengthen the community unit, through sports. How else are you going to do it? You have to have, for instance, like in some cultures there, people have to, food brings them together, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that not true?
Absolutely.
Food, music, okay, things like that, and sporting events. We can go back all the way to the Romans, the Colosseum and stuff. It was a sporting event that brought 60,000 people back in those days together to watch a sporting event.
It truly is an investment when
Yes,
you're spending
exactly.
time with family. I majored in psychology, I minored in anthropology in school, and I talk a lot about the fact that when you are spending time with your kids, or when I take my uniform off and I go on the football field and help a young person grow, we're doing far more prevention than we ever did by seeking the therapy that they need afterwards, or paying for lawyers, or trying to move schools because they can't cope with the situations that they have. So I support that movement too, Dan.
Yeah,
Sure.
and too, Clarence, how in sports there's so many. Sports is all cliches, right? And I have 2 cliches that I came up with myself. One being to my children. I said to my children, all 4 of them, I said, listen, okay, you only have one chance to ever make a good first impression. Okay, and if you don't, that's our good name in the community, amongst peers and friends, and we will never and don't ever tarnish our good name within the community and stuff. I said, we've worked too hard. My ancestors have worked hard for the good name. I've continued to work hard for the good name. Let's keep it going, So that was the one cliche I used to use. The other one I used to tell my players is the most rewarding thing for me, Clarence, when I was coaching was when I had some great Halliburton. I had 3 consecutive Halliburton trophy winners and stuff I coached over the year. But you know what? I was most rewarded when I had the lunchbox player, okay, and I coach him up to the point where he's really contributing on the field. I was rewarded more by that than having my Halliburton Trophy winner, play his game, because I knew what he could do. But it was more rewarding when I could get somebody with less skill to be as effective. So that, and I used to tell the kids, I says, I failed as a coach. When you walk off this practice field or the game field, when you feel less about yourself than you did when you walked in, I failed as a coach. My job here is to make you feel better about yourself. So
Absolutely. And that's what coaching's about. And, good coaches are invaluable. Good teachers are invaluable. Good mentors are the stuff that makes communities what they are. And they can break the communities too. I've seen some challenges where coaches have taken a team a certain direction and it wasn't healthy. Yeah. But the reason I enjoy spending time with the Huskies is it brings me back to my roots as a player,
right?
With the Edmonton Chargers and McNally Tigers and other places in Edmonton that showed what it takes to be good citizens.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. Are there things in your book, Ron, that are missing that you're looking forward to exploring, and maybe in the next chapter?
So, yes. So the first book was about the leadership and how these programs were made. And that was revealed through the players and coaches and management and media people in Edmonton and Calgary. The next book will be about the game's impact on the individual, how it helped them grow as people. And so now we've got, I'm pretty familiar with Butch's story and your story, and lots of players have gone through that just love the game and say that it changed their life. And they have no problem saying that. And they'll say that when they're 80. I've interviewed a lot of seniors when they reflect on their time on the planet, and, they're getting close to its end game for them, and they will say that. But so that's the thing I really want to do the deep dive on, and in a way, it becomes an advertisement for the game,
Yes.
because the game needs support, and it's one way I can support it. I shivered at a high school football game last night. I don't think I'd be worth a darn as a coach, because I could barely keep my teeth from chattering, and I was wearing 3 jackets, and it was ridiculous. I don't know if I could coach anymore. I don't know if I could.
We got soft in our old age, Mac.
So I'll do some service to the game. And getting back to the girls that are playing the game now, that'll be. I know the guys part of it,
Exciting.
but the female thing is there's a lot there. Anyway,
And not just playing, reffing now. We're getting a lot of girls in the
Yeah,
females in the reffing, and that's good.
Yeah.
You know, that we're getting
coaching and
coaching, reffing. Yep.
Yeah, I've had an opportunity to officiate in a couple different sports, and it's a completely different challenge.
Yeah.
And as a player, you think, after a few years, you get to know the game. And then as a coach or administrator, you think, oh, well, this is what I didn't know as a player. But truly, I do recommend that a coach or a player who's thinking about doing better and taking it to the next level, go to a referee's clinic, an official's clinic.
So I should mention the next book. I've interviewed as many equipment managers and referees as I have players.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they know the inner workings of the game. They know what's going on between tackle to tackle. And I always used to, when I coached, I used to tell ref, let us on the line, we'll set our own rules. Okay? Don't call a penalty if it's not even impacting the play. If it's 40 yards from the actual play, we'll set our own rules, okay, in the pits. Okay? But, sometimes they get flag happy and want to throw.
We've talked a little bit about the vision of and the future of football, which is terrific. It's always good to talk about the future of a sport that we love. What would you folks like to leave as a legacy for the future generations as they face those things?
Well, I had an opportunity when we took our high school team down to San Francisco, and we took a team to Stanford to watch a game against I think it was Virginia Tech. Anyway, the next day we went back to the stadium, and they took us for a private tour through the whole Stanford program, right? And you know what? What I think we need to do here, money's always a factor, right? Money's always going to be a factor, eh? And in terms of bettering our thing, I think it's education's a big part. You got to get these young guys. And it's gone so darn expensive for education, right? So, yeah, I'm not sure where to go with this there, Clarence, because it's, we need to do things. 'Cause what I've seen down in the States is that, they just seem to do everything right. There's some things we definitely have to, follow suit. But,
And that's where the Huskies Alumni Association comes in.
Yes.
They're leading that future, both in support for the organization that needs to pivot and swivel with the changes in the sport, but also financially and other things. This is not a cheap sport to go. Other sports you can pick up a ball and kick it on the grass and go. The things that we need to travel, the things we need to support the equipment that's needed, because technology is keeping us safe and going down the line. So, hats off to you folks and the other leaders in the Alumni Association.
Yeah, I'd say we're pretty proud of the fact that we've gotten ourselves in a position financially that we're able to help the team operations out. Last year helped them out and things like that. We've got the scholarship fund. Max worked hard on that along with Don Charna, the Edmonton Community Foundation. That's with Dwayne Ramuzer's son Matt, actually, the Edmonton Community Foundation. So, we got money in place. We're giving scholarships every year. We're continuing to grow that. So I think we're in good shape that way. We're doing some good things that I'm proud of as a alumni board.
And there's so many good things coming out of Huskies in addition to the alumni. Like your son is giving back to the community as a health professional.
Yeah.
And those future leaders in all different aspects of our society that's super important.
No, it's kids have done well. I mean, we're very proud of our kids, as Mac is with his, and you are with yours, and so all 3 of us sit here. we're all products of football, and all our children are doing well and on a good path.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Final words?
Mac, you go ahead there, Big Kahuna.
Final words. You're pretty good at this, Clarence. Yeah, no, yes, good questions, good follow up, and thank you for doing this, because I think ultimately it's good for the game, and yeah, it was good for me anyway to sit in front of a mic and
Yeah, absolutely. We don't do this often enough.
This is the first for me. I've never experienced something like this. So I watched them on.
And it's a real service. It's Saturday morning that you've volunteered your time to do this for Huskies and the football. So
Thank you so much, gentlemen.
Thank you. Anything we can do to help you out, you always let us know.
For sure. And your approachability on the field, on and off, is the best part of what we see about you folks. I want to thank our guest for participating in the Huskies Pulse podcast. And we look forward to seeing you on the gridiron. Thanks, gentlemen.
Thanks, Clarence. Talk to you soon. Bye.